to Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Jeff, as always, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Paul.
Hi, that's me.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. Yes. Are you good?
Yeah,
Are you
thanks
well?
for asking. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, and
excellent. Double thumbs up.
We're joined today by a returning guest, aren't we? We're joined by Mr.
Yes.
Ed Barnett-Ward from the Affable Company, and I was going to say with character options, but that's kind of Affable Company's your thing, isn't it? And character options is
very small. He's in my pocket.
If you
just sits in there.
Tissue compression on him. Yeah. How are you this fine morning?
Good, yeah.
Oh, I'm wonderful, and it's lovely to be here again in the bosom of the Hoodum.
Well, it's good to see you again, Ed, and you're looking very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
That's a compliment. That's as far as it goes, to be honest. So so it's meant to put you at ease. I was
really understated shirts. My
Yeah.
daughter said,
Where
are you going? What are you doing? I'm doing a podcast. If the sounds of Diana Wynne Jones interfere with at all on an audible, then that'll be her listening to
that'll be her
magic and mayhem.
Yeah, just before you join us, Paul, we were talking about summer holiday madness and managing kids and all of that kind of stuff. So,
well, indeed, yes, the reason for my tardiness, but let's not go into that.
So, Ed, let's what should we talk about first? Because there's just been a recent recent announcement of a forthcoming release of some new figures for B&M, hasn't there? So
yes.
I'm sure people listening and watching will know what's coming, but why don't you tell us a little bit more and give us a little bit more detail about what's...
Oh, good. Jeff, that's one of those classic questions to start asking, because off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. It's like I've got this thing of I've got a list here of about 14 things I'm not allowed to talk about.
Oh, really?
I'm just so terrified of that. And also, there's always, bear in mind that my position in the whole process, because I concentrate specifically on likenesses and characters, often when the B&M announcement occurs, I'm as excited as anyone, because there's stuff I don't even know is coming out. I often get the schedule lists. Al will share with me a wave, but quite often it changes and stuff. So obviously the bit that I know about is the Five Doctors Dalek set, because I sculpt Hurndall.
Yeah.
But aside from that, there's Fifth Doctor and TARDIS, and what else is
there's Revelation of the Daleks.
Revelation, lovely.
set.
The extended Daleks. They have that slightly different profile, and the sort of through repairs and bolstering up the collars over the years, they sort of got slightly elongated. Yes, and there's that profile being represented for the first time, which is lovely.
They look kind of like white chocolate in a way. I kind of want to eat them. I'm looking at the pictures now.
Jeff, eater of Daleks, coming to a cinema near you.
That's an episode title there, isn't it?
Eat a Dalek or two.
And there's the brilliant Sixth Doctor as well, with his TARDIS, which is really good. So tell us a little bit about the
I said fifth, didn't I? Good grief, there you go.
It's sixth, Revelation. Yeah. So suddenly the whole Doctor Who fandom has gone into apoplex.
It's almost as bad as saying William Hurndall rather than Richard Hurndall.
Richard Hurndall, indeed. Yes.
Some people might have made that mistake in the past, but
strange that, isn't it? But it's an easy mistake to make, after all, it's a sort of combination of the first Doctor, isn't it? William Hartnell, Richard Hurndall, and how was that? Was that a lot of fun looking at another Doctor, another slightly different?
So
because obviously Richard isn't around to sculpt now, is he? So what were you working from?
And actually, with a lot of actors that I might sculpt, there'll be a good amount of reference to be had.
Yeah.
But with Richard Hurndall, actually, the majority of imagery that exists of him are much earlier in his career, because his more establishing roles that he had, for some reason, were more photographed. The figure's an interesting one, because actually we originally did a version in 2008. I was sculpted by an absolutely amazing sculptor, Andrew Teal, when I was working back at Design Works. And now Andrew did, I would say, the lion's share of all the original sculpts of the Doctors, because in those dark and distant days, my role was predominantly as a creative director. I very rarely sculpted things because I was supposed to be managing other people. And there's this weird thing with the Doctor Who line that the history of the line actually covers a big change in the toy industry and the way things are done. So when I started out, everything was sculpted physically. All sculptures were actually sculpted, with little tools. And over the course of the line, we've moved from practical sculpting to entirely digital sculpting.
Yeah, I'll just interject there. You talked a bit about that when we chatted last, didn't we? So anyone who hasn't heard that podcast should go back, and there was a couple of great stories about scanning actors there, wasn't there?
So we did Hurndall. There was, I think at one stage there was conceived a 5 Doctors set, and it sort of, for whatever reason, didn't end up materialising. I know that, as is always the way, images of that sculpt have sort of slightly leaked out over the years, and people were aware of its existence. So some imagery had leaked out of the Hurndall, so I know that people were aware that it existed. But it is one of those things that with prototypes, they're just part of a process, and so unless they're retained by the original sculptor, most of the time they just don't exist anymore. In the case of Hurndall, I had a single casting of it, which I gave to Al, and he sent out to the Far East, and they threw it away by accident.
Oh no!
So it was completely accidental, and actually I can't think of something like that ever having happened before. But the only thing I could do was just do a new one. So I tried to do it actually in the spirit. Yeah. It's an interesting one, because the take on the character for that one episode, he is very sort of irascible and grumpy, but all the decent screen grabs that I could take of him, or almost all, were him smiling. Because all the high-res imagery that you would have, the photo shoot, the famous photo shoot with the waxwork of the Fourth Doctor, and other stills that were taken at the time of production, he is always smiling, because as a person, he was a very affable person. So when a camera was pointed at him, he smiled. So and screen grab from old 629 line video stock of the 70s, even when it's been upscaled, it's like
still not quite.
It's blurry. It's like it's been through a big old filter, and you don't get the detail. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but he's lovely face. And
I'm just looking at the high res pic here. Yeah, curls back under, doesn't it?
Is absolutely amazing. I mean, no problem with approval. Sailed through. I don't know if the estate have approval. They tend to in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, I guess they probably would, wouldn't they? Unless they trust you enough by now to just do it, but
well, I don't know. There's always a lot of interested parties to
true.
make sure that you're pleasing, with the stuff you do. But it certainly brings me closer to my goal is to end up having sculpted all of them.
All the Doctors,
and that I'm nearer now to that goal than I've ever been.
That's pretty good. I do have just one criticism to make on that set, actually. Hold on. All right, I'll go in there first, mate. Hold on. Right, the Dalek looks too perfect. What was did you have that decision? Because obviously in the TV show, The Five Doctors, they dragged this thing out of storage and they patched it up. It was battered. There was bits falling off, and it was just a complete wreck, wasn't it? So did you ever have that discussion where it's like, do we make it like it was on a TV, or do we just make the
have that discussion? I mean, there's always a balance between how something appeared on screen and something and sort of elevating it slightly so that it's the idea. I think that the sort of guiding principle you'd always go by is that it might not be what you could see, but it was just not visible, and that's why you couldn't see it. I mean, going all the way back to the Sea Devils, they had no kind of sculpting underneath those net coverings that they were wearing.
Just flat.
It's just an amorphous suit. We tried to give them some physiology and just to elevate it a little bit, but you never want to go so far as that you're completely reinterpreting the character. I think it's the case with what a Dalek is. You don't really want to have the mesh hanging off and some of the slats bent out.
There's a sort of health and safety hazard there as well, isn't there? You know, child choking hazard
be,
or whatever.
You know, a unique selling point. You know, detachable, wiring and.
Well, if someone's really fussed about it, they can always pull the bits off themselves, can't they? They can always customise it in their own way.
There's a polarity, range of views. I say in fandom about this and whether you should do this, and I read comments which I find hilarious, if I'm honest, because you think it's sort of, in some cases you'd be making something that would look as if something was wrong with it, and that
that's it.
It would seem like a demonstrably not good thing to do. I mean, there are people where the level of accuracy will never be enough. I mean, I remember having arguments on discussion boards years ago when we first started out. Al and I would both frequent the likes of Outpost Gallifrey and talk about what we were doing, and then it became like you'd been invited to a party, but everyone at the party wanted to have a go at you.
They're all throwing the food at you.
It's like, I just wanted to have a nice chat about what we're doing, it's like, you want to argue with me about how terrible it is that Cybermen aren't made of actual metal in the character option. and that's a
actual cyber metal.
There's a genuine argument that I had with someone saying that they were objectively bad figures because they weren't made of action.
That word, objectively bad. Honestly,
so yeah. I mean, you know, that's.
I think you're quite brave getting involved in those as a as a creative behind all these things. Throwing yourself into the mix is quite a thing.
I've been having this thing recently actually where I must admit, 20 years now, I've not. I very rarely actually go looking for reviews of products or stuff like that because I found early on that wasn't good for my mental health. I'd spend a lot of time second guessing things and thinking, you know, I wish I hadn't made that decision or whatever. But I suppose it's a testament to how merciless the blooming YouTube algorithm is. That recently I looked at a couple of things, and now my timeline
it's full of
them.
Do you know what my
I can't escape people's top 20 worst figures character options.
Do you know my tip for if like you're gonna watch any of those type of videos, you know, through curiosity or whatever, do it through the incognito tab on Chrome, anonymous, because then it won't infect your main YouTube. So you know you can still keep all the good stuff there. Because you're right, Ed. You only need to watch a couple of things like that, and suddenly you know you're flooded with it. Like if my boy has been watching YouTube on the TV at home, I guess it's like hundreds of Zelda videos from the Switch, and I know he's been at it. You know, it didn't take much for it to kind of infect it and take it over.
We have a family Spotify account. Everyone theoretically has their own, so shouldn't met with other people.
Shouldn't.
But you can only tie, I think, 2 accounts to Echo Dots. So that means that anyone that listens tends to listen on my account, and I just despair of the things that Spotify suggests that
same
I should
here.
listen to.
Yeah, because you like this, you'll like this.
Like my Amazon Music playlist is I've got my own playlist, but it keeps recommending Ariana Grande and Lana Del Rey and whatever, you know, and it's like, no, that's not me.
You're testing a lot there, Paul.
What about all them Megadeth songs I keep playing? Do they not count for anything? Seriously? Honestly, I tell you what. Actually, I mean, just on that 5 Doctor set as well. I am waiting, Ed, for the for the character options version of Tom Baker's Waxwork.
Yeah, I was just thinking
that would be a nice bit of
the updated disco dancing. The brain pose that only works in one way. Yes. What's he doing? He's got his legs crossed with his hands on his hip.
Yeah, is he going for his hat or
like
something?
That,
Let me have a look quickly, see if I can.
Are you having a look as well? Are you?
5
Doctors. Both typing the same thing. I'll just let you do it.
My favourite's the one where they're all holding it.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all holding his scarf or something. Oh, yeah, the waxwork, they're all propping it up.
He's got one arm out, kind of like that, like he should be resting on something, but he's not. So he just looks like he's kind of just floating his arm in the end, and the other one's on his hip. Yeah, it's amazing that they did that, isn't it? For like,
it is. I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? You totally understand. Tom Baker was only 2 years out.
Yeah, he just wanted the distance, didn't he?
Really, at the time. Didn't want to return so quickly. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I just find it astounding that special, that 5 Doctor special, a mere 20 years after the show started, and we're in that position now, really.
I know. 60 years
coming up. We've had another 20 years of New Who.
It's incredible.
It's astonishing. It really is. And way to go to make me feel really old, Ed. Thanks for that.
Well,
but it is.
When
it's
started,
incredible.
I was in my 30s. I had hair.
You still got hair. Look at that.
Yeah, it's an optical illusion.
Is it a filter?
It's a filter, a Snapchat filter.
I'm very good with Adobe products. It's real time.
Adobe hair products. That's what they should launch.
But it's that thing of when I was. I mean, relating it to another science fiction franchise, but when I watched Star Wars in 1977, the character I most identified with was R2-D2. As I grew up, I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. As an adult, I imagined myself Han Solo. And then one day you wake up and you think, you're Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I love that. That's brilliant, actually.
Or in my case, physically, George Lucas, sadly.
So there is a striking resemblance there, isn't there? Look at that. Yeah. Well, is that another filter? The George Lucas filter.
But that, Star Wars was probably the inspiration from everything I did. I wanted to be a filmmaker originally.
Did you? Yeah.
Ended up doing what I'm doing completely by accident, but it did. I lived in America for a while, and I did a lot of work for Lucasfilm. So
wow!
I did get to play in Skywalker Ranch, which is the most wonderful thing you can possibly do.
Oh wow! That must have been like a sort of dream come true in some ways.
It absolutely was, especially since that world, for all intents and purposes, no longer exists. None of the elements of Lucasfilm, since being under control of Disney, are in the same place. So where we were the first group of people, I think, ever to go out to the ranch to sculpt there. Because the reason we did was that we did product for Star Wars episodes 1, 2 and 3, and they were always or often on a very short time scale, and there wasn't normal approvals processes. Like, it's now we've got I won't say a fast track, but such a good
relationship. You've got a flow
with email and
say electronic media and everything. It's so easy, but in those days, you actually the fastest way to get something done, because most of the people that administrate those licenses, they'll have an agency in the UK, and they'll look at it, and then they'll send it to the US, and they'll look at it, and they'll send back comments, and that process can be 2 or 3 weeks, and a lot of these products just didn't have that kind of timescale in the total project, so they ended up sending us out there, and we would sit in a little office in Skywalker Ranch and sculpt, and then at lunchtime go and eat in the canteen with
George
Lucas.
That must have been amazing. How long were you out there for?
So I must have gone to the ranch probably a dozen times before they moved licensing out of the main ranch, and they had the old LucasArts building, which was also in Lucas Valley, but was in a different physical location. It was by a lake, and it was this Japanese style fortress. It was so amazing. But I've been to the archives. I've seen all of the original props. I've been to their product archives with all of the. I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. All of the Indiana Jones figures that never came out, that Kenner did prototypes for, and there's a whole world of things. And you'd go into the production offices, and there'd be sections for the different productions, and you get Raiders and Temple of Doom and Crusade, and then after that it was Indy 4, Indy 5, Indy 6. There were things. You have no idea what these sections were and what they contained, but just the proximity of them was amazing.
Wow. Does he still live there?
No, I think he lives in another physical location, but
he lives in the Force, Jeff.
Because the ranch complex was just unbelievable. It was huge. It had its own fire brigade.
Really? Wow. I'm just looking at some pictures of it now.
the ranch is such a beautiful building.
Yeah.
But you sort of, I mean, it's so well designed. It appears to be, when you see images of it, it appears to be sort of nestled in this valley in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you just go around the corner and there's like a vast underground garage and stuff. You know, you'd go and Lucas's slot was filled with a beaten up old pickup.
It's typical George Lucas, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
Doesn't really seem to have many airs and graces. Still seems to be the most humble guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, loaded and so influential on so many of us across the world, and you know, not just as individuals, but I mean the whole landscape of culture and media and cinema and everything. I mean, you know, going back to the world of figures, I remember I'm telling my age now, but I was 6 when Star Wars came out, and I went to see it, so it was a really impressionable age, and it had a massive rewiring of my brain almost. You know, it sort of gave me something to kind of frame my world in for either better or worse. And of course I remember going with my mate to the stores in town to buy those little tiny Kenner figures. And you know, and more so when The Empire Strikes Back came out, I think there was a much wider range then, and they're more, you know, just more of them. And the Y-wing I used to have in die-cast metal. I've got Millennium Falcon kit up there somewhere. I've got other stuff over there, but all of that, you know, just you know, it's stuff you grow up with, isn't it? And then the films and everything around it.
I mean, so I come from a tiny little town in Devon, Tavistock, which is on the
Tavistock.
moors. Absolutely beautiful town. Every year in October they have the Goose Fair, and the Goose Fair is my dad would always the night before Goose Fair we'd drive around in our car because we'd see all of the rides being set up and all of this sort of stuff, and it was amazing to me because I was every year I was given a £5, and it was a huge amount of money.
Yes,
huge
that's
amount of money.
Loaded. Yeah,
but it was this one day of the year, and so I go and do all the things that I love doing. I didn't really like fast rides. I loved the dodgems. I loved the rifle range. I'd go and the arcades. I would always go and play Atari Star Wars, Paperboy, Tron,
Paperboy,
whatever they had. But I remember the one year thinking this money will get me some Star Wars figures, and instead of going and spending it all on the fair, I went and had a go at the rifle range. I went and had a go at the dodgems, but then I went and I bought my first figures, which my first 2 figures I'm pretty sure were R2 and Chewbacca. Probably because that's all they had. It took me a really long time to get a Han and quite a long time to get a Luke. But yes, I mean I've loved action figures since I was tiny. You know, that's 77. 6. So.
Yeah, I know. It's again feeling. That's a similar story very quickly for me, because I remember having a £5. I can't remember how I got it. I'd either saved it up through pocket money or my parents had just been really generous one week. But I do remember having this £5, and I knew what I wanted to spend it on. I wanted a big X-Wing fighter because it was $4.99. I'd seen it in, I can't remember the name of the toy shop back in the day, but I'd seen it the week before and I really wanted it, and I'd managed to blag this £5 through some means or another. And I remember on the Saturday morning before I was going to go with my mate, because we used to walk up the town, me, him and his mum, and go and buy our stuff. And I lost the £5, and I was gutted. It was about an hour before I was going to go see him, and I was in complete distress. My mum and dad were both out, right? Yeah, exactly. And I just remember being up in my bedroom, you know, tears welling in my eyes, right? Looking out of my window, and this is how good my eyesight was then, because it wasn't good. It's not good now at all. But I saw something in the gutter on the other side of the road, and I thought, that's my £5. And it might not have been, but I ran out straight across the road without looking at any cars coming or anything like that. Bad move, kids. Right, but it was quite straight. Went over, grabbed this piece of paper, and it actually was a £5. Whether it was my £5 or not, I don't know, but in my head, it's my £5, right? And I pocketed it. It was a little bit wet from having been in the gutter, but it dried out, and I managed to get my X-Wing fighter. And I should have it on display here, actually, but it's up in the loft. And it's one of those that I distressed immediately, so I kind of, painted it over with some battle damage and laser scars and carbon scarring and all that sort of thing. But, those are the moments that we remember and that are just special and are inevitably tied in with all this stuff that you guys create for us. It's astonishing.
Ed, I was going to say, have you ever been to the Milky Way in Devon?
Oh, that's what you went to.
It's a little theme
park.
Your
tweets on that.
Yeah, we've been a couple of times, and it's great fun. But the reason I mention it is a guy, I don't know his name, but he donated his collection of sci-fi memorabilia to be stored there because they had the space for it, and you can make a donation for Make-A-Wish or something like that. And the first part is a TARDIS, and there's there's a Davros and a Silent and various Dalek models that he's got. I mean, actual size. I don't know whether they're replicas or actual things from the show. But then in a room that seemed bigger this time than it was before. Tons of Star Wars stuff, absolutely tons of the stuff. Figures in packets, all the Kenner ones, a load of like Mickey Mouse Star Wars, crossover things, models, blasters, huge amount of stuff, and I'm not really a big Star Wars fan, but it was great seeing it all, but they had some Grogu's there which I like seeing, so that was cool. But yeah, if anyone listening, if you're ever in the area, visit the Milky Way. It's a great little theme park, but this collection of stuff is definitely worth looking at.
Where is it?
It's just on because we went to Bude in Cornwall for our holiday, so my dad's from Bude, and it's probably maybe 25-30 minutes from Bude going into Devon, so it's only just sort of into Devon, and then there's the Big Sheep, which is another theme park that's a little bit further in, but right on the border there. So because I saw the signs for Tavistock and stuff as well.
Yeah, I was in Bude as part of my holiday. We only for the day, a very blustery day, but there is an amazing pasty shop there, and there is also
which one is it? Pengenna.
Yes.
Yes, in the by the little green.
Oh, we've all been there, I think.
Yeah, we went there one day. Yeah. Whenever my dad goes down, he always brings me one back. Yeah.
Stunning pasty.
Yeah.
And also there's one of the most beautiful old style toy shops that you could ever want to. Huge.
Yeah.
A couple of shops knocked together over a couple different levels.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of place that I love where it's packed from floor to ceiling with product.
It's got a lot of Playmobil in, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
But it also has loads of Japanese imported. They had masses of Pokemon and plush,
right?
And Lego action figures.
Yeah, I know the place you mean. We didn't visit this year,
models, but the whole gamut of stuff that you could want. And I love traditional toy shops.
Yeah.
It's that thing of again, there's a I read recently there was the special that came out on the figures on the Doctor Who range, and I still haven't managed to get a copy in that rather annoying way, but people keep photographing bits of it and sending it to me. And
I thought I might have it in here actually.
Somebody was talking about in that kind of amazing sort of acknowledgement of your fandom that you get when you go into a big place like Toys R Us and see a wall of product dedicated to the thing you love, and that very sort of strong feeling that that you get from being able to interact with things. I mean, I love. That's one of those things that it's sort of, the world moves in the way that the world moves, and we're all shopping online, and we all would like to think that we'd like to spend our time going up and down high streets, but the reality is that most of us don't.
Of just,
it's sort of like gosh, my brain is tangential, but I remember this piece of interesting piece of market research that was done. That was pork pies are consistently a supermarket's best-selling item, and yet in consumer research that everyone claims to hate them. So it's that thing of the behaviour. There's a behaviour that people actually do, and a behaviour that people would like to
and will defend forever.
Totally. And I did, but of course I miss the days of Woolworths and Toys R Us, because they were responsible for generating so much Doctor Who product. Yes. They were all clamouring for their own versions of things. But I have to say, I don't think that necessarily the days of excitement for the line and for figures are necessarily gone, because I think that we're about to enter another age, and everything I've seen of it so far just I find
you look
exciting.
At the
I'm quite a jaded old hack as far as these things go, and the amount of times I've gone, that's a good idea, that's a really.
Well, you look at the excitement for the 14th Doctor's sonic screwdriver. I mean, that was just like a whirlwind, wasn't it? Just woof, straight in, straight out, just unbelievable.
And it's lovely, but it's that object is such a totem. I mean, mine will always, favourite will always be this one.
That's such a monster.
Capaldi,
yes, there you go. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
This is the original prototype of it as well.
Oh wow.
And it's slightly brighter than
they turn it down a bit.
And these are turn spark acrylic rather than the version that you. So it's resin and not plastic. Which that was taken to an approval meeting, and there was a fan who'd been invited along to get a load of stuff signed, and Capaldi was like, "But Ed hasn't got anything signed." He was so funny. He was so sweet. It's like, "Can't be left out." I was there to scan him, for the second time, and he was like, "He can have this, can't he?"
Little Ed.
Oh, amazing.
No, I don't know.
But that's like Peter Capaldi sort of understands what it's like to have that fan gene, because of course he has it himself, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah.
He completely does. But they've all wonderful. All the Doctors. I mean, I've never had a negative experience, and I've done a lot of film sets and a lot of TV stuff in the past, but they absolutely are
legends,
lovely people. I mean, I've had absolutely some of the best times of my career, meeting, scanning, talking to them about their figure, their stuff, and their work.
Brilliant.
So it's I always want to try and put some aspect of the character into the work, into the sculpts, and we've sort of learned from experience that a basically neutral expression does work better, but even within the confines of a neutral expression, the tiniest eyebrow raise or frown can alter, your perception of the character, and you don't want to be creating a sculptor of grinning loon when they are a very serious-minded Doctor, or vice versa. So it's always sort of incumbent on me, I think, when I meet them, to try and get a sense of what they're going to be. And a lot of the time, just by observation, if I happen to be there at a script reading or
you'll pick something up.
Filming day, you can tell, what they're going to be like.
It's interesting that bit, what you say there about, a tiny little bit on, of expression on the face. So like, I've got a few hot toys at home, and quite often, and you've probably seen them as well, Ed, incredible faces. I've shown my wife pictures of stuff before, and she's gone, oh, that's so and so. No, it's just a toy of them. They're that good. But you put them in these poses and stuff, and they're all actiony, but the faces, completely blank. But then on occasion they put something out, like they did a Margot Robbie Harley Quinn, and she had her mouth open, and it was this, like, she looked far more attractive than I did there, but it was so good, and it put so much life into the figure. And they've started doing, like, some of them have like rolling eyes and stuff now. You take the hair off and you can move the eyes, like old
the Action Man
Joe and stuff.
With his little slider at the back of his head.
There's a version of my head that you can do that with in the Her Majesty's Armed Forces range. I was the model for one of the principal soldiers, and the Hawkeye feature, as they called it, was me. I was a sniper. One of my other claims to fame, a description of that figure is in the first Cormoran Strike novel by J.K. Rowling.
Oh, really?
There's a bit where he gets PTSD from seeing an HM Forces action figure on the shelves in Hamleys, and the figure she's describing is me. But yeah, I've with doing those faces, I always strive for that Hot Toys thing. I always want to get as close as I can to the reality of the person. And people that come onto my Facebook page often kind of go, oh, but the actual figure won't look like that. And it's like, when I'm doing the sculpt, half the time I will put the pores of the skin and the wrinkles. And yes, on 15mm of plastic, there is literally no way that stuff will come out. But it's there to inform what will... you always say, push it as far as you can push it. And they're getting better and better at art in the Far East. And we're really... with new figures, we're really trying to up the game. You'll see on my shelves in the back there, I've got some Black Series figures and Star Wars and the Raiders figures. Yes, I like this stuff. I don't really collect. I've got it from for reference points because of wanting to constantly see how far the engineering will go and pick up the tolerances. And me and my little friend do a lot of measuring of tiny little details to go, well, if they can do it, then we can definitely push to achieve that same level.
So, some of the stuff is
incredible.
It was all of it, really. Yeah, like my son, he loves the Mario movie, and we got some of the figures for that. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're sort of 23, 24 quid a time, and I look at them and I think, oh, I'd kind of like that, because they're more detailed and articulated than what you normally get for a kid's toy, and that I think they're really collector's stuff, but they bend and twist and all over the place, and they're really good, and I see him throwing them around and not looking after them. I'm like, yeah,
it's. I mean, the thing is that you do have to keep trying to push and innovate, put new joints in where you can, find new ways of doing joints. I think there's a lot of good
I'm
things
excited.
to come.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Colin Baker figure, Sixth Doctor figure, actually as well, because that's that's
too,
what you're saying about the raising the eyebrows and getting the personality across. It's nice. It's got that kind of haughty Sixth Doctor kind of thing about him. That aura of
So,
and the hair as well. Look, like it's not just blonde. You've got some brown in there as well, and like the suit as well. The detail on that is it all hand painted? Obviously on the prototype it is, but on the produced one, is it hand painted? So sorry, whatever happens if it goes wrong on a figure, is it like?
This is Jeff asking about 100 questions all at the same time.
Yeah, sorry.
So the way that figures are painted in production, even the finest details, they have like copper spray molds that the figures drop into, the mold close and they go over.
Right.
Or they are tampo pad printed, and that is also stunning to see, which is that a pad literally goes on like an ink blot and then goes over the figure. But that can only happen if you can hit certain high points, because that process inherently doesn't go into to recesses. I was still marvelling at Hasbro's printing technology that puts the shading on faces is just utterly stunning. But yeah, I mean, the failure rate is very, very small, because the process is so tried and tested and effective. But going back to Colin, so that sculpt, which is everyone will know, is still our original release sculpt from 12 years ago.
Yeah,
that was Colin's head was one of the hardest heads to do.
Really?
I think we went through 4 different versions of that sculpt before it was approved, and in the end it was a group effort. So I did the hair on Colin and some final tweaks to the face, but the hair is mine. But really hard, because again, he has a surprisingly, I would say, animated face. We have a sort of age-old saying that the likeness is only as good as the reference. It can only ever be as good as the imagery that you can get to represent that figure. And if you have an actor like Colin who is very animated with his facial expressions, it's very difficult to get consistency. And the muscles and the fat on their face and everything changes so much with the different expressions. I'm just looking at myself and seeing how lines come in and my bags.
Don't worry, I'm worse than I make do.
But all of
it's all part
that
of
story. Changes so much with different expressions. So we spent a long time on that head.
And you do see that with with figures in general, like you say, like sometimes you look at a figure and you think, oh yeah, that looks just like so and so, and then you turn it a little bit and it doesn't look quite like them anymore. And I've seen that with Hot Toys stuff as well, and also like slight detour, but as you know, their stuff is so good, but sometimes they release something and you think, what? Like they had an Ant-Man come out, Now, it was an incredible facial sculpt with Ben Affleck, and I was like, why? You know, but then you see another photo and you're like, oh yeah, I can see that's Paul Rudd's eyes there. But my first Ant-Man from the first movie looked like Paul Rudd this big. But why does his new one look like
Ben Affleck? It's so funny because you've inadvertently, Jeff, stumbled on a technique that used to be a standard managerial technique, which was, it's never nice for an artist to hear they've missed the mark.
Yeah.
You know, they put their all into it.
Yeah.
And my not so subtle way of, if I was in that position, in that studio, I would have gone and said, look, that is the best Ben Affleck sculpt I have ever seen. The only problem is it's supposed to be Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
And that would, and I'm sure there's, if any of my old colleagues are watching now, throwing
Jeff, you are number one target of hate now.
Did that to me. But then it's sort of, you know, when you're just doing the thing directly, then it gets to be Al that does that to me.
Yeah.
But in fairness, that isn't what Al does, because hopefully I am now at a stage where I'll always deliver something that looks like the person, but he will tend to the thing that he might pick up on is like, just not that expression.
Different expression. Try something.
You know, that you try. Yeah, that's.
It must be
that's
so
like,
difficult to get that though, because I'm just thinking about what you were saying there about getting the right expression. It's like, you know, I think I'm no expert in this, but I think in our heads, our brains assemble an image of somebody as taken from all those different visual cues, and on a model, you've got one. That's it. So you've only got it. You've only got that single cue to work from, and I think you're right, Jeff. In certain lights, it will look like the person, but you turn it slightly, and it will just kind of look not quite right or wrong in some way. But I think that's
perception is subjective. I have read and seen reviews that would tell you that sculpt of David Tennant is the worst likeness in the history of the universe. Like, people think it looks nothing like him. And I was, it's like, well,
that is him. That's what he looks like now, guys.
It
might not be what he looks like in your head, but
not in your head, but that is what he looks like. And it's that thing of, when I see something like that, I think, well, I think it does. Al thinks it does.
Everyone else who signed it off
from BBC Worldwide does. David Tennant thinks it does. Then that's my
That's
line.
all the endorsement you need.
As long as all those parties are in agreement and happy, then that's the thing, and then there'll inevitably someone.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's usually a small percentage of but it's the loudest people, isn't it? You know, always the way. It's the most negative are the loudest people online, because they just do that.
But that's the thing. I mean, if I hopefully you guys. You definitely don't have this in your.
Sometimes
in your
we do. All right, super.
But it is a very weird thing that just engaging with the world, engaging with media, my work can be insulted. I can just be working away, just like perfectly happily, and it will. And especially with things like YouTube Shorts, where people will say
20 reasons why this does not work, or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Why this is the worst idea in the universe. And that just that thing of, again, people not appreciating how the sausage is made.
It's awful sometimes, because you put your heart and soul into these, like you said.
There are compromises and things. There are sort of things that we don't do. I mean, the frequent one is, as well, if something leaks of a past thing, then there is the automatic assumption, oh well, it's easy to do, because a prototype existed on something at some point. then we can have that now as a figure.
Next week it'll be in the shops. Yeah,
it's like it just simply doesn't work. I mean, we're on probably I think about 27 unreleased figures. The chances of seeing the majority of them are vanishingly small. They just had a moment. They were created for a moment. And they went
a mayfly's life, you might say. Yeah, that's quite poetic, exactly. Wasn't it?
It was. So, Ed, we've got a few questions here for you.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll also talk a bit more about your experience, your stories of Doctor Who and your dad and things shortly. So we've got a question here from Twitter from Doctor Who filming locations, which is @set_DW. Hi Ed, massive fan of the figure line. Has RTD's return increased the desire for a wider range of figures to be made? And we've had a couple of people ask similarly phrased questions to this, but can we expect more releases for the 60th/Series 14 in comparison
so you check
to the
that
last
list
few
of 14
series?
things that you can't talk about now?
yeah, check your NDA.
Yeah, I've got 14 things straight off the back that I can't talk about. So the simple answer to that is, and I think this would be uncontentious to anyone, is it's a sort of slightly chicken and egg thing. Character options did not go into 2004 thinking that they were going to have, the sort of toy of the year level engagement with what they were doing. Nobody thought that way. We thought they would produce the best possible little range of toys to go with this much loved historic property. No one really knew how it was going to go. When it took off, and we were suddenly, looking at in that heyday of producing pretty much a figure per episode. We would try to do a figure per story, and because of that overriding principle, then that's why you end up with Grandma Connolly, because that was our sort of what we were operating with, and we were like, we're going to produce we can't just do a TV. It's got to be more than that. Let's have a victim. We never do a victim. Let's do a victim. So that's the mindset. So if there's that level of engagement with the show where there is a huge upsurge in sales, they absolutely will respond to it as everyone would want with a larger range of figures. But it's still we are still at the unknown.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the long and short of it is people have got to buy stuff, haven't they, to show that the demand and you're not going to release a figure per episode equivalent, until you know that people are there to buy it all.
And I think probably we're as big a fans as anyone, and the thing that people feel they forget, I think, is they're sort of cocooned from that. In the sense that their fandom is continuous, and they will like some things, some who more than others, probably some iterations more than others, and some periods and some writers, but the fandom still continues at the same with the same appetite for anything that comes out. We will support and will buy. It's kind of not them that is really the issue in these situations. It's the mass appeal,
the non-we.
It's where every kid in the playground has to have one. And if I don't even know if toys are still in that are in that arena anymore. It's that thing of the industry has changed to such a large way over the last 20 years. I don't know. I don't know whether it's that's a sort of that's a sort of existential crisis that the industry goes through all the time. Is like there are certain things which are perennial, which will always sell in any situation. Cuddly toys, play telephones,
stuff like that.
But everything else, you only have to look at something like Barbie, where the demographic for Barbie gets younger and younger and younger. It used to be,
teens, like
sort of up to around 10, 12, and now it's much younger.
Think about it. Yeah, when my girls were playing with Barbie dolls, it was they were 3, 4. I think my youngest was even younger, actually, thinking about it, because my older daughter had them. So it's.
But I have my kids. I have 18, 16, 14, and 10. By the time they've gone to secondary school, already the figures are not played with; they are displayed. So they'll still keep them out as totems of the thing they love, but
they're not played with. That's it. Yeah, you
can't
can't throw them away.
With
but
I when I go to the toy stores with my kids, there's those sort of infamous pictures of Woolworths back in the day with wall to wall Doctor Who. And we go to the shops and there's not wall to wall of any one thing anymore. I mentioned the Mario figures earlier. There's a range, but it's not filling up a whole wall.
It'll be a section, won't it? And you guarantee as well that
it's a section,
the manufacturers would have paid for that section, and will be obliged to keep it stocked as well, because if the manufacturer can't supply, then usually with the big corporates like B&M and Toys R Us and Day and Argos and stuff like that, you get penalised for it. So there's a lot of.
You go into Entertainer, always by the door. There's action games, Nerf. The next section is Lego, and then it goes back to plush at the back of the shop. The action figures now tend to be on the the chest level units in the centre of the
yes, they
shop.
are. Yeah.
You don't get the big walls of action figures anymore.
No.
I don't know that anything is a particular guaranteed seller, and it's one of those things. Again, with very very popular licenses, I mean, it doesn't matter how many versions of Iron Man suit there are. If you're a kid and you've got Iron Man, you've got Iron Man. You don't really have the desire to get every iteration, and I think that's So you look at Marvel, and you're looking at a 12-year history of where almost all the versions of a character you could want have come out within the first 5 years. I think the industry is being hit by that.
Interesting.
And there's I don't know how much longer the gargantuan lines for licenses like that will
continue.
Carry on. But with Doctor Who,
it seems to be, doesn't
constantly
it? Touch wood.
Regenerates.
Yes, literally.
And the demographics slightly regenerate.
So, right, actually, because it's got to be a wider spread, isn't it?
Within my household, my daughter has definitely led the viewing of the Jodie era, and my son's slightly fell away. Whether I mean, everything that I see from Shooty is
looking good,
amazing.
And what
Jeff?
What have you seen?
I couldn't possibly comment.
So I'll move swiftly on.
And this is not me saying that there is even a figure, but I've seen the trailers. Everyone
So there's a question here from Harry Jordan, who's at Harry_Jordan_98. Hey Ed, thank you for the wonderful designs over the years, heart emoji. I was wondering if there's any possibility of revisiting designs from the 3 3/4 line that never made it to 5.5 inch. A Series 7 Ice Warrior and a Series 7 Cyberman would be very welcome. Smiley face, thank you.
That's their personal order.
Cheeky
put
face.
In place.
Well, as someone who did that lovely Cyberman, I sculpted that, and you can go visit on my Facebook page. There's some nice renders of it that I did all up in metallic. It's not as easy. Yeah. Again, it's that sort of the answer to that question goes back to the previous thing I was saying before. Because it exists in one form doesn't make it easier to produce in another. It doesn't alter the fact that still £30,000 worth of mould making of tooling that you have to do before you've even shot a gram of plastic into it, let alone painted it, put it in a package and put it on a shelf somewhere. Yeah. So I think we're still at that stage of looking at every release we do and ensuring that we get the most out of that release. And if we're going down the route of creating an entire new figure, that we'll be able to get the most out of the entire new figure. And again, it's the thing that we just wait and see how
it pans out.
Far it flies again, and whether that takes us to the place where all of those things are possible. It's funny enough mentioning the 3.75 inch line. There were things that we sculpted that didn't end up coming out for that line that I really would have loved to have seen. I
was just going to ask you as well. I was thinking, can we ask? Can we not ask?
Can you tell us if it's on the good list?
So we did a Fishing King.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And it's an absolutely beautiful design creature, and it would have been fantastic.
Didn't make it for some reason.
Didn't make it.
There's a beautiful design in that, isn't it? It's one of the most unique looking things.
That was fantastic.
In the pantheon, if you like.
Yeah. Really good.
It's very, 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 very nice.
He's looking at something else now, listeners.
Just because Al's given me this list of things.
I was just wondering if this came from Al.
He's given me this list of things it's okay to talk about, and they're quite they're quite disparate in they're completely not connected. But
Has he put comments in there as well?
But in relation to things that we made but never came out. I mentioned those 27 odd figures that were sculpted that never came out for one reason or another. Most of them it was because we had planned a larger set
that didn't quite make it.
Didn't materialise. So I think in the case of, for example, Bride Donna, we did. Was originally conceived as part of a set. We hadn't seen the Empress. They were still working on the special effects. The first thing we got their maquette in special effects. They will often do a sculpt of a character to visualise that character, and then when that was sent over to me at the workshop, we're like, that's going to be a huge lump of plastic. There's not going to be room in that set for anything else, and it was it was already done.
What can you tell us a few other figures that were prototype but never came out?
Yeah, Baines from Family of Blood.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful sculpt as well, because we did him.
Yeah, he's got a good face, hasn't he? A sort of long,
supercilious look that he did, looking down. But funnily enough, my favourite figure of all time, which never came out, the Doctor's daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Jenny would have been good. Yeah.
She was absolutely beautiful sculpt by a wonderful sculptor, Sarah Robinson, who tended to do in those days all of the female characters. In the days when we were still prototyping things by hand physically, male sculptors have a slight issue with sculpting, or in my experience with sculpting women, is that they don't, how can I put this? They tend to be a little bit towards a caricature.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
And the certainly physically, but also in terms of, there's just something inherently slightly masculine about sculptors. And that can be really detracting from a subtle female likeness. But Sarah, who is responsible for some of the line's best female sculpts, so think your things like Donna and Leela and stuff like that. She just did this beautiful sculpt of George Moffat, and it was another one adapted from Primeval's line, Hannah Spirit, because we just had to change a few bits on the. I mean, that figure ended up being Bill Potts, and put the boots on, and we sculpted a gun, a lovely made
her a nice weapon as well, just to shoot things with.
and that was for a whole wave.
Didn't materialise.
Didn't materialise. There was that one and the Waters of Mars.
Yeah, that would have been good as well, wasn't it?
Water Zombie. We also in that line did do a Sylvester McCoy that ended up coming out as something else. It was a different head. It was a revised head that ended up coming out as something else. But
so you have to live with those regrets because you know about them, whereas we don't, because we don't know about them. But
well,
we just wish to see them, I guess.
It's that thing of well, I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll be far enough down the line that we will be able to show some of these things without them being an issue. I mean, Al and I have talked recently about doing a book, and as a sort of in preparation for that, funnily enough, I've been drawing things back off the archive and finding all my photographs and films of things.
That'd be a great idea, wouldn't it? I imagine that would just fly off.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to see that. Yeah.
Preparation.
But I've got a couple more questions here for you. This is from Owen, who's at Whovian Live. Are there any figures that we may see from the 60th specials? Now, obviously, you can't go into details, but we've got the 14th Doctor. But is there anything else coming out?
So, number one on my forbidden list of things: do not mention anything about the 60th anniversary.
Well,
don't mention anything about monsters. Don't mention anything about characters.
Is that in capital letters as well? Is it like extra size font, bold with warning signs around it?
There's a question from Escape Flop, which is at escape_flop, and it says you've basically answered his question about, hey Ed, are we going to get a Beep the Meep Teddy? I think a lot of fans just want to hug Beep. So you'll have to wait and see.
You'll have to hug Beep. I mean, you know, it's just the fact though that they're doing. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things that I do absolutely adore about Russell T Davies, is that he has looked at a corner of Who
largely forgotten.
Most people don't even know exists. That you know, based off the strip and lovely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know. Wonderful.
And I remember the buzz at the time when we all kind of suspected it was Beat the Meep, and people were saying, no, it isn't. It just looks a bit like that, or pops, you know. And you think, well, no, because those monsters look like the guys from that story, Star Beast. You know, it's them. And then it all kind of crashes up, and it raises. It was brilliant. I do love that aspect of fandom. You know, when something suggested, it's kind of put down. Other people support it. You get that whole to and fro, and as long as you don't get nasty about it, it can be enjoyed.
I know it is. You're right, Paul. It is wonderful, but it is also hilarious how often people are.
Yes, usually that's me.
Because I have these things with people going, you know, oh, we've seen this and that.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. When I did renders of the 14th Doctor, I thought people would be interested to see the level of detail that I put in underneath the clothing.
Yes, yeah.
So I've done a couple of renders where he's got his coat sleeves, but you can see his vest underneath. And the amount of people that have gone, oh, that's proof that we're going to get a figure without the coat.
Oh, yeah, I saw those comments.
And it's like,
yeah,
no, that's just me rendering
that's an example of my skill, sunshine. That's the quality.
Yeah. I don't know. So, and someone going, why is he only got blue on the back of the waistcoat? Because how about the back of the waistcoat?
Blue? Yeah. Does that occur?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Nothing more.
Here's a question from.
I have to apologize. All of these questions.
We don't mind.
The
it's
same
fine.
Response, but
it's
effectively the same.
You might. I don't know. You might be able to give a bit of an answer to this one. If this is from Acquainted Guy. Do you think there might be a chance the line will be able to look back to some previously missed characters like Nardole, Dan, Kate Stewart, and this is Fugitive Doc and Sasha's Master? We spoke about them before, but do any of those names crop up on the list that you can talk about?
No, they don't. but you know, I'd say all of those things that I can't talk about. There's a good lot of them. There's you know, there's a good. So it's that sort of, and again, I just to reiterate, it's that thing of I know how everybody hangs on every word.
Yeah.
I plucked the number 14 from thin air, so it's not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Representative of an actual 14 figures that are ready to ship. You know.
Yeah.
That
it's actually
simply
points.
indicative of
a volume, of a number,
of an amount, which is a good amount.
Yeah.
Of new content,
stuff.
New things that have not been seen before, and people know from the line. You can there are things where deductive reasoning. I mean, have we ever not done a Doctor?
Yeah.
Have we ever not done a main companion? I don't know. I can't think of a situation where we haven't. Well, okay, yes, actually, there are some main companions going back to, but to sort of circle back to that thing is, yeah, I mean, there are things that I would love to do, doing Nardole, for example, just personally, so I'm not saying, again, this is not indicative of it actually happening or anything. Personally, I would love to sculpt him because I loved when we did, so people won't remember this probably, but Character did a range of Little Britain figures. They're not action figures, they're plushes. And apparently they were, at the time, they were bought by students mostly. Very hard to get hold of.
Got a little Matt Lucas and a David Williams.
But I did.
I just looked them up. Yeah,
I did Marjorie Dawes cake.
Have some cake.
And she's just, and he's just got such a wonderful face.
Yeah,
and I love that character. And it's that again. It's the thing of Peter Capaldi's era. I really, really loved. Really thought he was totally getting into his stride. Just
Isn't that always the way, though? I thought that with Peter Davison as well. Just really getting into it, really enjoying those stories, and then that's it. He's called it a day, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
I heartily agree.
Do you remember when we spoke last? I suggested to Al that a weeping angel 13th Doctor would be a great figure, and the cogs started turning in his head. I just wondered where that had gone, or is it on the list? Because I mentioned it in email.
You can't say, is it on the list?
Because
that's going to say, it's not.
Yeah,
true, yeah. Yeah. Well, no, if it's not on the list, then I could take it as good news.
and the list covers the whole gamut. It covers the whole gamut. It's stuff you've seen recently. It's stuff you've seen
long time. The list is the list. The list.
Yeah.
I wish I could reach into your screen there, Ed.
You just need a little mirror at the back of his head there that we can zoom
yeah.
Reflective surface.
I'm looking in the door, but I can't.
We can't.
Don't worry, I can't see it. or can I?
Zoom in on your glasses and get the reflection.
Yeah.
I know.
People are trying to.
Yeah. So we'll move on to your bit more of your personal history of Doctor Who in a minute. Is there anything figure related that you'd like to say before we do that, or anything you want to bring up?
Anything you can tell us? Ed is really thinking about it. Oh, there are a range of expressions.
Yeah, if you're not watching and you're listening,
you're a tease. The particular briefing email that he sent is absolutely class as well, because right at the end there's loads of pictures of entirely new things to start.
Ed! Oh my goodness, both of you.
We were taken off that email,
which is.
That's all right.
I think I've covered.
I just thought of something. When we spoke last, you very, very briefly showed us a figure that was in development. Do you remember? And I've seen it. Was that who it was? Because people screenshot it
out, weren't they?
And they'll go, "Oh, it's Adric."
I have something though, which is possibly of interest to the world. Now, I've spoken about figures that didn't happen, that were planned. In the entire history of my working on the range, there is one figure that was sculpted, and it was sculpted entirely because of my fault.
Yeah.
And as a result, was never charged to Al. So, what happened in the heyday? Often, we'd work off lists, and when a sculptor came to me and was like, "Ed, I'm free. I need a new job. I need new work," I'd just go and start that thing off the list, because even it would be almost guaranteed to happen. very rarely the list actually didn't materialise or was radically changed, and in this particular case, so I think again it's probably well known because I think it might have leaked as well, that one of the figures that will never be released is a cyber shade from the Next Doctor. Now the reason the cyber shade won't be released is because when we got the reference materials, we got the studio shots, the costume shots that they'd taken, continuity for the character, but the character was not being represented or portrayed. They weren't character shots, they weren't set shots.
Got you. Yeah.
So it was a very, very key thing that was missing from our information, which was that in the actual story, they are genetic mutant dogs.
Yeah.
And they run on kind of all fours, shamble on all fours.
Yes.
And all of the imagery we had was of them standing up.
Okay, yeah.
So we sculpted it standing up. Now, that was on the original list supposed to be part of a Next Doctor set. And we actually did do... I said sculpt it, but Al hadn't given the go-ahead for it. So there's a little, Jackson Lake.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's good. It looks like him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Little David Morrissey with his lovely hair there. Yeah.
Little David Morrissey, which is that particular.
Look at that quiff.
You can say it's one side of the face is darker than the other because it's been sun bleached. Actually, I might have another. Yeah, I do have another casting of it. There are other secret heads in there.
You're not probably going to screenshot that now.
You can't know about, because they're owls and he's not. But that was never done. Never done. And the whole figure was done.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Oh right, so yeah.
The whole figure was done, and I even have. I even
did you?
got it painted up.
I was just going to ask if it was sort of all yellow gold like that, or if he painted it.
But that's. I mean, this is how we used to do the. There's actually, funny enough, there's in that same bag as the Capaldi regeneration.
Yeah, the attack eyebrows. Yeah, look at that. It's brilliant.
Raised.
That's bang on character, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's possibly the most animated expression we've ever done on a character.
Who thrown me this throne?
But tiny little bit of history.
Good. Thanks for sharing that, Ed. Yeah, indeed. Yep.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's you look at something, Jeff. I can see your face. You're looking distracted. What's going on?
Yeah, I was just. I'm looking up action figures, and I was thinking, how many Claras did we get? I'm quite a big Clara fan.
He's looking for images of Jenna Coleman online again, aren't you? That's what it is.
I did the Big Chief. It was the only Big Chief I did, and I just actually want to say how sad.
Yes, I saw the
demise
news.
of Big Chief is. I think. I think that they really tried to do stuff, but. Unfortunately, the business model is somewhat of in a sense, hate to say it, but it's like a pyramid scheme, because if your entire business is dependent on the pre-sales of the next thing, then it only takes one thing to fall over, and it's all gone down. And in their case, they just kept getting smashed with situations, COVID and everything else. It's that thing of It's very sad.
Yeah, it is. And when you've got a model that can't easily adapt to those situations, you know, it is quite sad.
Because when you look at the say how HasLabs or the others run those kinds of things, they don't press the button on the basis of money they've taken in.
No, it's all mortgaged in a sense, isn't it?
Until you
can't pay for it until you've sold it.
Until they've actually done it. But then they have the advantage of having that massive infrastructure behind them. So of Hasbro.
Yeah, it was sad news. Yeah. So Ed, tell us a bit about your for anyone who hasn't. Yes, because you
surprised us, didn't you, when you hit us with this previews? We were amazed to learn that Ed's father was involved in the early days of producing actual proper on telly Doctor Who with William Hartnell.
Real Doctor Who with so my dad he joined the BBC in the 50s, and by 63 he was assigned to the main drama team at Lime Grove Studios where Doctor Who was filmed. So he filmed all of or almost all of Doctor Who up until 1970 when he left, and his last sort of thing that he did while he was at the BBC was he was part of the test crew that created the time tunnel
slit scan
for the John Pertwee titles. So
you mean the diamond, the red and green holy swirly thing?
The actual swirling vortex. So if you didn't know how that was achieved, it's a feedback. So it's a camera effectively pointing at a monitor that
it's filming its own
connected to its own output. The monitor is put on its side, and then a foil piece of tube is put in
on the lens of the camera
in between on the lens revolved around, and that creates this wonderful swirl.
It's brilliant.
It's amazing, isn't it? That how stuff like that was.
Have you ever tried doing that, Jeff? When you've been filming, you're not trying to do a cheeky little Doctor Who effect.
I might do when we. I'm going to go home and make a tin foil.
First time I got a camera, and I knew that was kind of sort of how they did it. I tried it, and it took me ages to kind of get it because you move it slightly and everything goes off, so it has to be positioned quite accurately to get the real kind of swirl effect. And then when you start adding elements to it, like you say with the tube and various other bits, and if you put lettering and stuff like that on, then again it still needs expertise to. It might sound really random, but it isn't. You think, you just point a camera thing, but it's not. It's actually quite a precise thing to get an aesthetically pleasing result from that sort of stuff.
And so that was the first colour that they would first colour stuff that he worked on as well. I mean, I sort of found quite recently actually, because my dad passed last year, and it's sort of every time I go back down to the house and go through things, I'll uncover new stuff. So I found all of his handbooks. I don't even know if they still do this, but BBC employees used to be issued every year with the BBC handbook, which was a full list of guides, regulations, protocols. There's a little book, and he's got everyone from 53 up until 72, I think. I found. I also found in his diaries the actual. He always put what he was working on, whether it was rehearsal or whether it was a actual shooting day. And so I deliberately went back and found all the dates for Tomb of the Cybermen, which he was lead camera on. So so I can tell which of his shots are his in that episode, because you've got cameras 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can tell from the setups which one's which. So when the iconic shot of the Cyberman punching out of the cellophane in the tomb is fantastic. Is definitely my dad. Did that. But he was, BBC cameraman at the height of, I would say, the sort of creative explosion of television. It's funny because he could appreciate Doctor Who retrospectively, but at the time they thought kids show.
Just another job, I suppose.
William Hartnell, he liked and respected, but he loved Patrick Troughton. Was really a very nice guy to work with, and a very just approachable, down to earth person, and he really. There's several times he talks in his diaries about maybe filming a 625 pop special and feeling a presence next to him, and it's Pat Troughton sneaks
I've just come to have a look at what you're doing.
Playing, still in costume, it's brilliant. It's my dad behind me. I've got
see some.
You can just see
binders from.
Those are his. He self-published, so he wrote all his diaries up, and then basically did them in books. And but being like anybody, he edited his life. So when I go back into the diaries, I often find things that I didn't find interesting at all.
But you really hang on to,
find really interesting. So it's one of those things. At some point, I might write them up. I
was going to say, I bet it'd be a really interesting kind of snapshot of the early, Who and TV days and that development of TV as well. Yeah, that's fantastic that he logged it all like that and did so much of it.
Yeah, and again, I can send you some pictures of him in the studio.
That'd be great. Yeah, we can put them in. Yeah, that'd be really good. Well, thank you very much for joining us again, Ed. It's a pleasure to talk with you as always, and we could probably just talk all day, but we've all got work to do, I'm sure, and then more.
I've got a lot of
figures. More figure dreams to make for people. Yeah.
I sort of say this very heartfelt to everyone. It's that I'm sorry that we can't talk about these. I'm sorry that it's not possible. I would so love to go into the minutiae of all the things we're working on and why. But suffice to say, the line is very much alive, and there is a lot of wonderful.
I think that's a really positive thing, and very highly anticipated hunger for all the stuff that you guys are doing. So thank you, Ed, and please keep it up, because we clearly can't get enough of this stuff. It's meat for Doctor Who fans, and we'll just gobble it all up.
Yeah. But let's have a chat a bit later in the year when some more stuff on your top secret list is become available, and we can talk in a bit more detail about some stuff.
But definitely, nice. I think there's some things that people will want.
See, now I'm getting excited all over again. You know, you guys just keep doing this. You keep bringing that excitement for things.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, Ed. It's been a pleasure as always. Brilliant. Have a super day, and our best wishes to you and everyone. We'll speak to you again soon.